Man is not truly one, but truly two. That is one of the most terrifying lines in English literature.
Who said that?
A doctor, right before he lost everything. His name was Dr. Jekyll, and this is his story.
Jekyll and Hyde? I've heard that name before.
Everyone has, but most people get it wrong. They think it's about a mad scientist. It's not. It's about something inside all of us.
What do you mean?
The author, Robert Louis Stevenson, had a nightmare. He woke up screaming in the middle of the night.
A nightmare? That's where this story came from?
His wife shook him awake, and he got angry. He said, "I was dreaming a fine horror story." He wrote the whole book in 3 days.
3 days? For a whole novel?
Then he burned it and wrote it again in 3 more days. Because the story wasn't just horror, it was a mirror. A mirror showing the darkness inside every person. Now let's hear the story. From the foggy streets of London to the locked door that hides everything.
Mr. Utterson was a lawyer in London, a quiet, serious man. Every Sunday he walked through the city with his cousin, Mr. Enfield. One day, they stopped in front of a strange, dark door. "I have a story about this door," Enfield said. One night, he saw a small man hurrying down the street. A little girl ran around the corner. They crashed into each other. The man did not stop. He trampled calmly over the child's body. People grabbed him. They shouted, but the man showed no feeling at all. It was not like a man. It was like some terrible machine. Nobody wanted to be near him. Everyone felt a cold, dark fear. He wrote a check and disappeared through that door. The check had a respected doctor's name on it. The small man's name was Edward Hyde. Utterson went home that night, troubled. He remembered something. His friend Dr. Jekyll had written a strange will. It said, "In case of the disappearance or unexplained absence of Henry Jekyll, give everything to Edward Hyde." Disappearance, unexplained absence. These were not normal words for a will. Why would a respected doctor leave everything to a man like Hyde? Utterson believed Jekyll must be in some kind of danger. He decided to find Hyde himself. He went to the old door on the dark street, and he waited. One cold night, Utterson saw Hyde at last. Hyde was small, pale, and young. But something was deeply wrong about him. He gave an impression of deformity, but there was no nameable malformation. Everyone who met him felt the same strange disgust. Utterson went to Jekyll the next day. "Tell me about Hyde," he said. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" Jekyll smiled and shook his head. "I can get rid of Hyde whenever I want," he said. "Do not worry, old friend. This is nothing." But Utterson saw something flash across Jekyll's face. It was fear. Nearly a year passed. Then horror struck. A maid was looking out her window late one night. She saw an old man walking peacefully under the moonlight. It was Sir Danvers Carew, a kind and gentle gentleman. A small figure came toward him. It was Hyde. Sir Danvers bowed politely. He asked a simple question. And then, with ape-like fury, Hyde attacked. He was trampling his victim underfoot, raining down a storm of blows. The cane broke in two. The old man lay dead on the street. Utterson recognized the broken cane. He had given it to Jekyll as a gift. Hyde vanished. The police searched everywhere. Nothing. Jekyll told Utterson, "Hyde is gone from my life, forever." Jekyll showed Utterson a letter from Hyde. "You will never hear from me again." But something about the handwriting bothered Utterson. He compared the letter to Jekyll's own writing. The two hands were in many points identical, only differently sloped. It was the biggest clue, but Utterson could not see the truth. Meanwhile, their old friend Dr. Lanyon was falling apart. He had aged 10 years in a single week. "Do not speak to me about Jekyll," he begged. "I cannot bear it." 2 weeks later, Dr. Lanyon was dead. He left a sealed letter with one instruction: open only after Jekyll dies or disappears. Months later, Utterson passed Jekyll's house. He saw Jekyll sitting at an upstairs window. They talked for a moment. Then a look of pure terror crossed Jekyll's face. The window slammed shut. Days later, Jekyll's butler, Poole, came running to Utterson. "Sir, something is terribly wrong," Poole said. "That is not my master's voice. My master has been made away with." Utterson and Poole grabbed an axe and broke down the laboratory door. On the floor lay the body of Edward Hyde. He was dead. A crushed glass vial was in his hand. He had taken poison. But Dr. Jekyll was nowhere to be found. On the desk lay 2 letters, one from Lanyon, one from Jekyll. They opened Lanyon's sealed letter. It told a terrible story. One night, Jekyll had begged Lanyon to go to his laboratory. "Take the chemicals from the 3rd shelf," the message said. Lanyon brought them home. At midnight, a small, ugly man knocked on his door. It was Hyde. His hands were shaking. He mixed the chemicals into a glass. He put the glass to his lips and drank. Then his body began to change. His features seemed to melt and alter. He grew taller. His face shifted. His scream filled the room. And standing before Lanyon was his old friend, Henry Jekyll. Lanyon never recovered. That is why he died. Jekyll's confession told the full truth. For years, he had believed every person has 2 sides, good and evil, living together inside one body. "Man is not truly one, but truly 2, he wrote. He wanted to separate them, so he made a drug. He drank it. Pain tore through his body. His bones cracked. When he looked in the mirror, a stranger stared back. Smaller, younger, uglier. This was Edward Hyde. I learned to recognize the thorough and primitive duality of man. At first, Hyde felt like freedom. No guilt, no shame, no responsibility, just pure, wild freedom. Jekyll would become Hyde at night and return to himself by morning. He believed he had perfect control over both lives. But Hyde grew stronger and harder to stop. One morning, Jekyll looked at his own hands. They were not his. He had changed into Hyde without taking the drug. Jekyll was terrified. He locked himself away for 2 months. But one afternoon, sitting on a park bench, it happened again. His body shrank. His mind grew dark. He was Hyde. I was slowly losing hold of my original and better self. Hyde was wanted for murder. If anyone saw him, he would hang. Jekyll ran to his laboratory. The drug worked, but barely. The original chemicals were running out. New ones did not work. Something in the first batch was the key, and he could never find it again. Jekyll wrote his final words. The last of the drug was almost gone. "This is my true hour of death," he wrote. "I bring the life of that unhappy Henry Jekyll to an end." He called himself that unhappy Henry Jekyll, as if he were a stranger. He could no longer tell where Jekyll ended and Hyde began. The pen would fall. Hyde would take over, forever. And when Utterson broke down that door, the body on the floor was Hyde. But it was also Jekyll. It had always been both.
That was intense.
Right? Now let's dig into it. Starting with that very first scene. Hyde tramples a child on the street. And that word trampled, remember it, it comes back.
Trampled? What does that mean exactly?
Stepped on her, crushed her under his feet. But here's the word that matters. Calmly.
He did it calmly? That's even worse.
A trampled is violent. Calmly is peaceful. Put them together and you get pure horror.
So the scary part isn't the violence, it's the emptiness.
That's Hyde, violence without emotion. Now let's talk about Jekyll's will. In case of my disappearance or unexplained absence.
Disappearance? Isn't that the same as absence?
Not quite. Absence just means you're not here right now. Disappearance means you're gone, and nobody knows why.
So absence is a vacation, disappearance is a horror movie.
And Jekyll used both words. That makes the will even stranger. A normal will says, if I die, his says, if I vanish.
That's terrifying.
Utterson missed it, but that clue, it comes back to haunt them. Here's something Stevenson does that's brilliant. He never describes what Hyde looks like.
Why not? Isn't that the first thing a horror writer would do?
He writes that Hyde gives an impression of deformity.
Deformity? So something is wrong with his body?
That's what it means, something twisted, something not right. But then he adds, without any nameable malformation.
Wait, so nothing is actually wrong with him?
Nothing you can point to, nothing you can name.
So people feel he's wrong but can't explain why.
And that is scarier than any monster description. The fear you cannot name is the deepest fear. Now, the murder of Sir Danvers Carew. Stevenson writes, with ape-like fury, he trampled his victim.
Fury? That's just anger, right?
No, anger is human. Fury is beyond control. And he says, ape-like, not human, animal.
In the first scene, Hyde was calm. Here he's wild.
That's the change. Hyde is getting worse. And notice, trampled appears again.
Same word from the first scene, but totally different.
First time, calm and cold. This time, wild and savage. One word, two moments, two levels of evil.
That gives me chills.
But the most terrifying scene, that's coming up. Now, the handwriting scene, the biggest clue in the book. Utterson compares Hyde's letter to Jekyll's writing. The two hands are identical, only differently sloped.
Identical? That means exactly the same, right?
Exactly the same, not similar, identical.
So it was the same person's handwriting all along?
And Utterson sees it, but he doesn't want to believe it.
He had the answer right in front of him.
Humans do that. We ignore what we're afraid to see.
That's so sad. He could have saved his friend.
Or maybe the truth was too terrible to accept. Either way, the clue was there. In one word, identical. The butler scene, this is pure horror. Poole says, "That is not my master's voice. My master has been made away with."
Made away with. What does that mean?
It means killed, destroyed, got rid of. But Poole can't say murdered. He's too scared.
So he uses a softer phrase because he can't face it?
In Victorian England, people wrapped horror in polite words.
That actually makes it creepier.
Think about it. A butler knows his master's voice. He's heard it every day for years.
And now he hears someone else.
If the voice behind the door isn't Jekyll, then who is it? Imagine this, you're Dr. Lanyon. A man you hate is standing in your living room. He drinks a glass of liquid, and his face starts to melt.
Melt? Like actually melting?
Stevenson writes, his features seem to melt and alter.
Alter, that just means change, right?
Change is neutral, alter is deeper. Alter means something is being transformed at its core. Your face doesn't just change, it alters into someone else.
Stevenson uses just 2 words, melt and alter. That's it.
And your brain fills in the rest. That's the genius.
Less description. More fear. You imagine the worst.
Lanyon watched this. 2 weeks later, he was dead. Now we reach the heart of the whole story. Man is not truly one, but truly two.
Why does he say truly twice?
Because once wasn't enough. He needed you to feel it.
We heard that in the beginning. It hits different now.
Because now you know what it cost him to say it.
Duality. That's a big word. What does it mean?
2 sides in one thing, light and dark, good and evil. But duality isn't just a science word. In many cultures, it's a core belief about human nature.
So Jekyll wasn't crazy. He was just honest?
He said what everyone is afraid to admit. That we all have a dark side. He just tried to let us out.
And the dark side took over.
Jekyll didn't create Hyde. They were always identical, same soul. Jekyll calls Hyde freedom, no rules, no shame. But listen to what happens next. I was slowly losing hold of my original and better self.
Losing hold? Like dropping something?
Exactly. Imagine holding a rope over a cliff. Your fingers are slipping. Slowly, you can't stop it.
So losing hold isn't sudden. It's slow and terrifying.
At first, Jekyll chose to become Hyde. Then one morning, he woke up as Hyde without choosing.
So it started as a choice and became a prison.
Sound familiar? That's addiction.
You choose it once, then it chooses you.
That's deep, Will.
I have my moments.
Stevenson wrote this in 1886, before anyone understood addiction. Freedom that you can't stop isn't freedom, it's a cage. Jekyll's last words, the most chilling part of the book. This is my true hour of death.
Why true hour of death? He was still alive.
His body was alive, but Jekyll, a slow disappearance. Then he writes something even stranger. I bring the life of that unhappy Henry Jekyll to an end.
Bring to an end? Isn't that just finish?
Finish is casual. Bring to an end is final, forever. But notice he says that unhappy Henry Jekyll.
Why does he say that, Jekyll? Why not just say me?
That's the scariest part. He lost himself completely.
Jekyll's horror wasn't Hyde. It was realizing Hyde was him all along. Remember how we started? Man is not truly one, but truly two. When you first heard that, it sounded like philosophy.
But now it sounds like a confession.
Jekyll wasn't studying duality, he was living it. He didn't want to understand evil, he wanted to set it free.
And once it was free, he couldn't put it back.
Stevenson wrote this from a nightmare in just 6 days. But the real nightmare isn't Hyde's fury. It's watching your face alter and seeing both. I was slowly losing hold of my original and better self. Jekyll lost that grip, but at least he was honest about the fight.
Do you think everyone has a Hyde inside?
What do you think? Tell us in the comments.